More fun with the Blue Nightmare. Right now, I kind of made a list of stuff that I wanted to take care of today. I wanted to, it's just this way you can see it. I wanted to, I got to get the reverse lights figured out. I finished up the exhaust. We changed out the exhaust, put something different on. The other one was leaking. So we upgraded. We got something better on there now. The charge pipe going to the turbo was not bolted in. It was kind of just hanging there. I'm sure you've seen that in the photos, or actually the previous videos. And I wanted to worry about getting the radio rewired because it was all twist ties, or not twist ties, wire nuts that you would use in your house. We're holding the radio wiring together, so we're gonna fix that. But right now, what I'm doing is I've got grab my light here so you can see. I have right now, okay, this is the charge pipe. This thing was hanging way down. You can see it has damage here. It's still, this is still usable. We have the bracket. We have the correct bolts that this is supposed to be mounted to. All right, it's up in here where it needs to be. Okay, so I'm just gonna slide back here so you can see. All right, this is what I'm seeing. I'm looking up through here. Okay, I can see it's pretty much going in where it needs to be, right there. It'll kick it over. When I push up with my leg right here, it's going to push this part over some. So let me just double check, make sure I'm right above it. Okay, yep, that right there is where that needs to be. Now that needs to go up. Okay, you can see the location of the pipe to the turbo. All right, now I'm going to slide out from underneath here and I'll show you from the top. All right, so we're up top here. And if you look, see where the pipe's at? It's actually back behind where the turbo is. I was playing with this a little bit, and the charge pipe is really tight on when it hits the cables, which is why that's where it's at now, mounted right. Okay, so see, the problem here now is you can change the rotation of this housing on the turbo by turning that to be able to get that to fit up the way it needs to. You know, you could tell this housing was modified because they welded this tip on here. Some turbos don't have this welded on here to make it fit. You have to cut that pipe down there and then you use a 45. But this one does. This looks like it appears to be a direct fit. So here we are again, fixing something that wasn't installed correctly to make it work the right way. So, I mean, I don't know how long this has been on here, but that charge pipe's been dragging on the ground probably since this motor's been put in, and it's just not the correct way. It works. Yes, it will work. It's not right, okay? It's not. So doing stuff not right because it works, it's just not how you should do something. So what you got to do is these bolts here hold this housing on. We're just going to loosen that, and hopefully we can just tap this a little bit to get it to turn back so that we can get that lined up and then put our grommet on. I'm hoping when it kicks it back it brings it up a little bit. I might end up having to trim the pipe just a little to get it to fit on correctly. And this is all just so, you know, we can get this piping here to fit up. And, you know, I mean, come on. Should that pipe be sitting down here or up here? You know, it was down another 3 or 4 inches when we got started on this project. I mean, you can see that the power steering cooler is hanging down. I don't know if you can see it in this. I can see it. Yep, right there. That's hanging down a little far. So I'll probably push up on them brackets and try to straighten that out a little bit. Also, for ground clearance reasons, it's different some places. Not all places are the same. I mean, if you're in town and you have good streets in town and you're on the highway and you have good highway roads, that's fine. I mean, you know, you could damage this stuff pulling into a parking lot or a driveway depending on where you're located. But this here should actually come up. It'll actually come up, well, you know the thickness of that. It was probably another 1/2 inch. That should come up. So right now we're going to work on getting, excuse me, we're going to work on getting this turbo spun so that we can actually put the piping on here, and the pipe's on right, and it clears. So, oh yeah, and then, here we go. This is the, my fancy little zip tie collection. So this is a radio. We got to get this. This is what's on our list for today. You know, so we got to get them soldered together, and heat shrink, or, you know, man, it's just terrible. So that's kind of where we're at. The headlights do work. I just need to get some of this stuff here mounted and cleaned up, make sure it's going to clear the bumper cover when it gets reinstalled, and you know, get these bolted in. I got another bolt here I found for this. Just kind of picking at little things here today. Trying to find some windshield washer wiper squirter things so that we can get those taken care of. And just, you know, moving on. It's, you know, a couple small big hurdles here yet, like I said, with this. But we'll get this figured out here. We'll get this part here taken care of. I'll show you how I made out. Alright guys, so we have clocked a turbo. If you look, this is what it does. You're just spinning this outer housing. Kind of see it. It's kind of, I left it tight so that I could move it. So there you go. Hopefully you can see down there. Yep, right there. Now all we're going to do is just push this back. I'm holding my hand between the two so I can see them, feel them. Alright. So we are pretty much right where we need to be. Okay. I do have to make a couple more adjustments. It looks like I have to cut just a little bit more off of the end of this pipe to get it to come up right here. So I can actually come in here, and what I'll do is I'll take a tape measure and I'll measure across this, and then I'll measure down up there. I do need enough room on this pipe to be able to clamp it where it flanges down, which is basically where this is, right here. So I can actually flange down underneath here, which is probably what I'm going to end up doing, and retaining this here so that when I clamp it, the clamp will hold below this, and we can actually clamp it onto the turbo and get this pipe up where it needs to be. Alright, so here we go. Look at that. Lines right up. Hopefully there's enough light down there. We'll see. Alright, now look. I'm up on here. It's going to be a little tight. I ended up cutting off more than what I had measured. So, but, I mean, this is a huge difference here in comparison to what it was. So what I'll do is I'll put a washer on here. I'll show you what this pipe looks like once I cut it with a cut here. There we go. Alright, now, this is what I ended up doing. I was down, I had about 1.5 inches here that needed to be cut off. So, if you look, we're still, I mean, we're close. So, you know what I mean? We're between, you know, 3/16 and 1/4 there with what we actually got cut off of this. But I want to retain this lip for the ability for the hose to hang on there. Now what I did was I basically, where this would have been mounted on here, I measured the distance. So if you look, I measured and I have a line here. So we're going to cut this, then we're going to install it onto this, and then get clamps on it, and then we can get the pipe mounted up. I need to find a couple washers to stick underneath that one nut, because I don't want it, you want it close, you want this close to the turbo, but you don't want it, you know what I mean? You don't want it to force tight against that. And then once we have the turbo where we want to be, I'll go back in, I'll tighten in all of these housing retaining bolts with the clamps so that the housing itself doesn't move. But these are the simple things that, you know, you just go this extra mile, I guess you could say, not really even a mile. You know what I mean? It took me 5 minutes to, you know, use a little cutoff wheel. You could have used a saw. Then I used a grinder. Then I used a file to make sure that there was no metal in here and clean this pipe out. It's just part of doing it right and getting the stuff assembled correctly. I don't know who did it, but it's going to be right now, and it's going to work. So I'll get this together, and we'll see what it looks like. Then we can get the rest of the piping on, which, you know what I mean, is half the battle. Half the battle. It's like 1/100th of the battle to get this car up to being tip-top. So, alright guys, check that out. We got the charge pipe hooked up. It's not tight against my lines anymore now, so I mean, that's definitely a plus. Here's what it looks like down underneath. We did get the other charge pipe on here. Everything is connected. It kind of sucks. I mean, the light kind of makes it look like it's not where it needs to be. All I needed to do was I put 2 really small washers in here to make up the difference of the 1/8 to 3/16 of an inch. This pipe, look, we're up even with the oil pan now. These were a little bent. I did straighten them out the best that I could. So we now have all the charge piping hooked up correctly. I did straighten this bracket out here a little bit, but there is some twist on the cooler that I can't do anything about. Oh my goodness, I'm so glad this thing's almost done. I finally get to go for a ride and then see what else it's going to need. Good. Kind of cringy. So, I'm working on tightening up a couple things. I can get the air cleaner installed now finally. If it fits, there we go. I can install the air cleaner now finally. You know, just all the little things that make something like this right. And you know what I mean, just so much nicer. I found another. There's our 4th bolt for our coil. I got one of those, so I got to get that tightened down in. A couple other things up here I got to get worked in. Like I said, the exhaust is done. Just got to finish up the headlights. This thing's going to need coolant put in it. We did an oil change. We flushed the brakes, flushed the clutch. New transmission fluid, since it looked like it. I mean, we had it apart, so we just changed it. I don't know if it was bad or not, but we did. That's done. Intake's replaced. You know what I mean? It's just every little thing. It's just making everything better. We have a actual washer fluid bottle, not coolant. So, I mean, yeah. I think tomorrow we'll actually get the bumper cover fit up. New front inner wheel wells to install. One's here, one's in the box. We can get everything bolted up the way that it's supposed to be. I said I just got a couple things here I got to finish up. And then, you know, we're finally going to be down to actually, you know, maybe going for a real drive. I'll probably mount the GoPro up since it has mounts and see what happens for the test drive. And hopefully with some crossed fingers, we don't find anything else or have any other issues. But that's all part of a modified car, especially something with some age on it. So, man, I'm getting more and more surprised here.